first week of both college and the NFL are in the books. So obviously going into it, there was a lot of questions. What was the products going to look like? We got a small sample of it on Thursday night with the NFL. And then this past weekend, of course, college kicking off. Although no real games of note. I mean, Notre Dame was at 2:30. Clemson and Wake Forest played in the night game. Like the rest of the afternoon slate was just, it was worse than a normal opening week. I mean, it was rough. It was absolutely rough. It was not a good opening slate. A few more bigger games this week, but I think the SEC starts play next weekend, so we'll talk about that on next week's show, and then maybe the Big Ten. I'm kind of keeping my eye over here on the Twitter because there was word that the Big Ten was going to vote. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Sean, let's talk about Week 1, and we'll get to the overreactions in our question of the week when we talk about the NFL. But what did you like? What did you not like from Week 1 in football? I mean, for me, it was obviously different with less fans or no fans. And in most cases in the NFL, there was no fans, except in Florida. But I guess in Kansas City last Thursday as well. Yeah. But in college, there was varying degrees of fans or no fan. I know Wake Forest didn't have any. Notre Dame, I think there was around 18,000. Florida State had they said it was only like 17 or 18,000, but man, it looked like more, and they were packed a lot tighter than they were at Notre Dame. I know that much.
Yeah, people were sneaking out with ticket stubs, bringing their friends in. Something didn't look right.
Yeah,
in that scenario.
It was packed.
But I think Week 1, I'm going to give the NFL some credit. I feel like coverage-wise and camera angle-wise, I think they did a good job of keeping you on the playing field as much as they could. And I think as far as the games itself, the ones with fans, it was nice to have. There was some pumping in of crowd noise in the games without, and I thought it was a little more noticeable than in some of the other sports. I thought they were trying to be a little bit over the top with it. Jake, I do see I did not pronounce Louisville correctly. Hopefully I get better at it. I haven't been practicing. Got to get my
is that
Louisville
like
speech up.
I was going to
it's
say
almost 2 syllables.
I say is that
Louisville,
like an accent thing, like almost like New Orleans?
There's a hidden in there, like Louisville. Like there's a hidden. I don't know. He's tried to coach me up, but one thing I thought was really interesting about the first week is how in the very first game with Kansas City and Houston, one of the big stories, despite half the fans being there, was the fans, kind of the booing of the, standing for equality. And, it's kind of one of those, I'm not going to get in a whole debate about it on this show, but it's kind of one of those like, all right, we'll move it to a different spot than the national anthem. And, the boos come out anyway. And,
yeah, not a good look.
Were there a lot of boos? Were there not a lot of boos? Was it conveniently placed cameras? I mean, or microphones? Nobody really knows, but that was interesting to see. But I think as far as projecting that volume, I mean, it was very clear to me they had plenty of microphones set up to amplify.
Well, and did you hear what? And at least I think it was just Fox and CBS. Did you hear what they were doing? So they worked with NFL Films, and it was noticeable a difference between the NBC games and like Monday Night Football last night to the games on Fox and CBS on Sunday the afternoon, because the networks worked with NFL Films and they actually got audio from stadiums. So like for an instance, there was a spot where the Jets I think had gone for it on 4th down and 1. And they didn't convert, and like you could hear the crowd cheering and whatever. So
it was from that stadium?
And it was from the Bills stadium in that scenario. So they have like generic crowd noise, but then they also have like extra stuff for specific scenarios, like an interception, stuff like that.
Like it applied. Like it did feel like when there was whether it was a boo or a cheer or a heckle or whatever was going on, especially when it was reacting to penalties, things like that. It was very obvious that they had audio specifically for a bad interference penalty. The audio was different than like holding on the offense. So like even those things felt good. So in that sense, it was very good. But otherwise, you were right. NFL was definitely a better product than the college game was. I mean, our Irish gave us a little bit of a scare, and Duke put on a good show for the folks.
A little bit, especially in the first half.
But Duke's a well-coached team. I mean, they're kind of one of those ones. I mean, it used to be that they may have stood a better chance if their basketball starting, their 10 basketball players suited up and played. It's not that case anymore. That Duke team has become way more competitive in the ACC than they used to be, and were it not for Clemson. They might have a chance to challenge for a top spot some of these years in the recent past. But college didn't really do anything else for me this week.
No, absolutely not. I think I watched about a minute and a half of that Clemson Wake Forest game just because I was curious to see if there were fans in the building, and there wasn't. And
the interesting thing, I mean, I know we talk about fans, and I don't mean to cut off the Florida State. I meant to talk about kind of came into play, limited fans, whatever, but then they had quite a long weather delay in the middle of that game. Storms hit Tallahassee, and I mean, I was listening to it on the radio down here. Obviously, you get the feed for Seminoles games, and they were just talking. I'm like, where's the game? And here they were on a delay, and I'm thinking 15,000 people in a concourse is a lot different than 15,000 people in a bowl.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, you tried to limit how many people were able to be there, and then, they're kind of sandwiched into the tunnels behind the stadium because I don't think they're allowed to be out there either in a storm.
I don't know. I don't know. I think each stadium is a little bit different. There's some that
I don't know if that one's got a cover. I don't know that one has any cover.
And I don't know, because I remember one year, I think it was at Michigan State, Notre Dame at Michigan State. There was storms had come through, and some fans just elected to sit out in the grandstands. So I don't know if they forced people out or not. By the way, the Islanders took a 1-0 lead with about a minute. With a minute left, of course, we'll call
it a comeback.
Obviously, we'll keep an eye on that one. One half of the Stanley Cup Finals is already set. The other half could potentially be locked up tonight, but not if that score don't change.
Right.
But so I don't know if college, if they're able, if now stadiums are forcing people out into the concourse, and also depends on specific stadiums. I mean, Notre Dame. You can pretty comfortably fit 20,000 or 18,000 people in the multiple concourses at Notre Dame Stadium, because there's an upper concourse, there's a lower concourse, and they're fairly large in size, especially since the addition. I know when my wife and I were out there a couple of years ago when they were in the midst of the construction. I mean, the concourses were already bigger, and it wasn't even completed yet. So, but there's other stadiums that have very small concourses, so that can be a problem as well. So yeah, into one from Edmonton, but in Tampa, 1-0 Islanders. So we'll keep an eye on that one.
And on the lines of that, I was just thinking today they run the ads down here for the fans to watch and like to do, and they call it being the distant thunder, and I think that's pretty clever. They definitely have other hockey down here more than I thought, but the distant thunder I think is
that's pretty
is a pretty clever way to do the like watch from a distance.
Sure.
I like it a lot.
But yeah, I think for what it was, yeah, I thought the NFL did do a very good job with their coverages this weekend. And it felt like football. I was very curious to see how the NFL and the broadcasts from each place, because obviously you're on CBS, you're on Fox, you're on NBC and ESPN. I was really curious to see how it all came across, and obviously we'll get into some of the NFL reactions and overreactions with the action of the week in a little bit, because I think a lot of my thoughts from games can fall into those categories.